I'm ready to go to pity. I know gorgeous banners are the worst, but it's fine. I've been saving and it's... well, that was easy. Hello everyone, JC here with another video. Today we'll talk about the unit who increased the maximum stats a unit can have in the game, Krichevskoy. Even though most people think of him as their new main attacker, I'm here to show you that he is more useful than you think. If we're going to talk about Krichevskoy, I think it's important to address the elephant in the room, his massive attack. With 15,003,000 attack, he changes the way the game works. His NEC increases all stats except for speed by 16% to all allies. This is a generic skill that makes him a staple for any kind of team, as it doesn't have any kind of restrictions attached to it. His NE1 increases his own damage with skills when equipped with a sword. This is a good ability when he works as your main DPS, but it locks him into using a sword. His NE5 increases any buff received by the party by 18%. This is definitely one of his best abilities, as it allows him to work optimally as a supporter and help him reach the buff cap quickly. Last we have his NE7, which gives him a 65% attack buff for one turn each turn if you have 3 or more surviving members in your party. For skills he has a cheap AoE water element attack which reduces the enemy's defense and resistance by 5%. The debuff in this skill may seem unimportant, but in the future there will be units which activate the special effects if the enemy has a debuff, so that makes it really good. His low-cost single target attack increases the party's attack and intellect by 35%, and if the target has a defense debuff, then it will also give 75 action gauge. His high-cost single target attack increases the damage by 10% if the enemy has a defense debuff. The extra effect is easy to activate since he can proc this effect on its own with his AoE attack. Another good thing about Krichevskoy is that he learns Mega Braveheart at level 22, but taking into consideration his NE5, he will give a bigger boost than most Mega Braveheart users. Krichevskoy will be the best physical damage dealer for a couple months after his release. The synergy between his abilities and skills makes him a self-sufficient DPS. He only lacks SP generation, so it's important to add universal SP batteries in your team comps. Another important thing about him is that his abilities aren't restrictive in any way, so you can use Krichevskoy in a sword team, rainbow team, mixed team, physical team, and even in teams thanks to his cheap AoE and cheap single target skill with buffs. Now it's time to talk about units that you want to have next to Krichevskoy. Starting with Sword Forte units that pair well with him, we have New Year Girl Laharl. She increases the attack stat, damage done by special moves, and provides SP with her abilities. She is pretty good on her own, but with Krichevskoy, she has a special interaction, as her sword God's Blessing gives even more attack thanks to Krichevskoy's NE5. She is without a doubt one of the best units to pair him with. There's also Thunderlord Laharl. When you put him next to Krichevskoy, you know you'll lose most of the benefits from his abilities. But that's okay, because he compensates the loss with Mega Braveheart and Thunderlord's Order. Giving 30% more speed is great, and on the turns he isn't increasing the party's speed, he will be buffing Krichevskoy. But that won't happen unless you have a good SP battery next to him. Talking about the SP batteries, Lovely Flown is another excellent unit to pair him with, because she gives 10 SP to all your sword equipped characters. She has good healing and even Mega Armor Break. If you prefer to go with a rainbow comp, there's Frost Lord Rosalind and Fire Lord Margarita. Frost Lord Rosalind is similar to Thunderlord Laharl. She provides speed, but she does this with her abilities. Krichevskoy prefers buffs rather than boosts, because he makes more out of them. Even though Krichevskoy isn't a nice symbol unit, the attack buff is very much appreciated, as well as her defense reduction with Mega Armor Break. Fire Lord Margarita will boost the damage of special moves by 22% if you use her on a rainbow team, and she will also give 100 action gauge to the whole party if there are 2 or less enemies when her turn ends. Lastly, she can use an AoE attack which gives an attack, int, and crit damage buff to the whole party. Or you can cast Mega Braveheart if you want to go for a bigger attack buff. SP generation on a rainbow or mixed team can be provided with Priestess Cicely thanks to her SP transfer skill, which gets a slight boost to his attack buff with Krichevskoy's NE5. The good thing about her is that when we receive more universal batteries, she will be able to perform her role as a healer and a buffer optimally, but for now, an SP transfer she is. Of course, in the F2P department, we have Summer Edna. She's an excellent unit to pair with Krichevskoy, as she gives a speed buff for 3 turns at the start of battle, reduces damage taken for melee units by 40%, and she even has Mega Braveheart. Bringer X doesn't provide a lot of buffs, but he works well on rainbow teams, and he is very helpful if you need an SP battery. It's especially good for your classic supporter first team, as his SP battery benefits the ally that goes last. Believe it or don't, I don't recommend Supreme Laharl to be paired with Krichevskoy, as he only gets to increase his Supreme style by 3%, which isn't that big of a difference, but you can put him on your team if you need an SP battery. If you want to know which supporters go well with him in the future, the first and most important unit you want to pair him with is Archangel Throne, thanks to the buffs she provides, her damage boost, and her SP battery ability. Madoka buffs the attack, int, and critical damage of the party with her Overheal skill, and she can work as a buffer or debuffer when she isn't using that skill. Also, she combos well with Archangel Throne, as they both provide SP and make you tankier. Future Sally is another viable option, especially if you have more Knight symbol units and humanoid units. She provides SP, a damage boost, and a very nice attack and crit damage buff, and she can even work as a debuffer. Reubens, of course, is another good unit to pair with Krichevskoy, and the best part of it is that she gives a buff which increases damage done with skills, and the critical rate and critical damage on her Overheal also get boosted next to Krichevskoy, but most definitely, the buff cancel and defense and resistance down is awesome with a 15 million attacker. If you already have New Year Girl Laharl, then you may want to get Sapphire Xeno, as she gives a nice attack buff. And just like Krichevskoy, she can increase the attack buff effects used by the party by 24%. The last unit we should take into consideration is Maid Salvatore. She's a buffer which excels on water teams, and Krichevskoy just happens to have his own water element on his cheap AoE attack. She also has huge buffs for both sides of the spectrum that affect the whole party. Taking this into consideration, you can even put him on an inting as a sub-attacker just to proc Maid Salvatore's NE5, as well as increasing her buffs. To finish, it's time to talk about his role as a supporter. As you have seen, his NE5 isn't really busted, but neither is it forgettable. This ability works better with big buffs. Lamington, Zeta, and Magical Girl Laharl are units which hugely benefit with this ability. Just as we mentioned earlier, he pairs particularly well with Maid Salvatore, so take him into consideration for your water elemental physical teams. He could also work on an intim, as he reduces resistance while activating Salvatore's buff. But if you ask me, the best way to use him as a supporter is next to Supreme Girl Laharl, as she gives herself a lot of crit buffs, but not that many attack buffs. If you put her next to New Year Girl Laharl and Sapphire Xeno, she will reach the buff cap quickly. You can also throw Maiden Salvatore to the mix, because Supreme Girl Laharl's single target S-rank skill is Water Element. Beach Girl Laharl is another excellent option if you don't plan to use Krichevskoy as a sub-attacker. He can become a reliable Mega Braveheart user if you put a spear on him thanks to Beach Girl Laharl's SP battery ability. And that's all for now. Krichevskoy really shifts the meta, so it's okay if you want to invest a big chunk of your resources on him. Be sure to let me know how your rolls went if you decided to get him. If you liked the video, share, like, subscribe. Next video on how to use your points on the new stores. See ya!